All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. We are on chapters 4 and 5 today, and I'm going to get started with chapter 4, The Secret Workers. The next evening, Grandpa Joe went on with his story. You see, Charlie, he said, not so very long ago, there used to be thousands of people working in Mr. Willy Wonka's factory. Then, one day, all of a sudden, Mr. Wonka had to ask every single one of them to leave, to go home, never to come back. But why? Asked Charlie. Because of spies. Spies? Yes. All the other chocolate makers you see had begun to grow jealous of the wonderful candies Mr. Wonka was making, and they started sending in spies to steal his secret recipes. The spies took jobs in the Wonka factory, pretending that they were ordinary workers. And while they were there, each one of them found out exactly how a certain special thing was made. And did they go back to their own factories and tell? Asked Charlie. They must have, answered Grandpa Joe, because soon after that, Freckleberg's factory started making an ice cream that would never melt, even in the hottest sun. Then Mr. Prodnose's factory came out with a chewing gum that never lost its flavor, however much you chewed it. And then Mr. Slugsworth's factory began making candy balloons that you could blow up to huge sizes before you pop them with a pin and gobble them up, and so on and so on. And Mr. Willy Wonka tore his beard and shouted, "This is terrible! I shall be ruined! There are spies everywhere! I shall have to close the factory." But he didn't just do that, Charlie said. Oh, yes, he did. And he told all the workers that he was sorry, but they would have to go home. Then he shut the main gates and fastened them with a chain. And suddenly, Mr. Wonka's giant factory became silent and deserted. The chimney stopped smoking. The machines stopped whirling. And from then on, not a single chocolate or candy was made. Not a soul went in or out, and even Mr. Willy Wonka himself disappeared completely. Months and months went by, Grandpa Joe went on, but still the factory remained closed. And everybody said, "Poor Mr. Wonka, he was so nice. And how he made such marvelous things. But he's finished now. It's all over." Then something astonishing happened. One day, early in the morning, thin columns of white smoke were seen coming out of the tops of the tall chimneys of the factory. People in the town stopped and stared. "What's going on?" they cried. "Someone's lit the furnaces. Mr. Wonka must be opening up again." They ran to the gates expecting to see the wide open and Mr. Wonka standing there to welcome his workers back. So one says, what emotion does Mr. Wonka give when he says, "I shall be ruined"? So I went ahead and enlarged that section just a little bit so that we can see. We're going to go ahead and tag number 1 right here because this is the area where we find Mr. Wonka using those words. This is terrible. I shall be ruined. There are spies everywhere. I shall have to close the factory. So we're looking there to see exactly how he is feeling because I'm thinking about the emotion. So if I'm thinking about the emotion, he's thinking he's going to have to close his factory. He's yelling that this is terrible. I shall be ruined. He is definitely angered, or we can just say angry. He's angry about what's happening. The people are coming in spying to steal his stuff. He's thinking that he's going to have to close his factory, so he may even be some bit of worried. So now I'm looking at my answer choices. The first answer choice is anguish. That may be a word that we are unfamiliar with. So we can come back to that word after we look at the rest of the answer choices. The next answer choice is be helpful. So if we look at what we annotated to the side and what we underline in the text, he is not feeling helpful right now at this moment. He says that he feels like he's going to have to close. It's terrible for him. Even if we go back up into the text, I can see an action that he does. It says Mr. Wonka tore his beard and he shouted. So that goes along more with him being angry and very upset. So he's not helpful. See, hungry. He is definitely not hungry in this situation. Again, our words go along with him being angry and upset, worried. Let's see if I can erase that line. All right, there it goes. The last one is secretive. So he definitely had secret people coming into him, but he's not feeling secretive himself. So the best word would be the unfamiliar word, which was a anguish. And anguish means that you are in great despair, very upset. The second question, what does it mean when the factory was deserted? So I'm going to go along in my text because I need to find exactly where it says that the factory was deserted. If I look here, find in the text where it says that the factory was deserted. So I'm looking in these paragraphs and I begin to read. Oh, yes, he did. He told all the workers that he was sorry, but they would have to go home. Then he shut the main gates and fastened them with a chain. And suddenly, Wonka's giant factory became silent and deserted. So right here, it gives me the words that they use, that it became silent and deserted. So we're going to underline that. So then off to the side, I want to write about what's happening. So he closed the gates, right? Everyone was sent home. And here it says that everything stopped. The machines, the smoke, everything had stopped going on. Because he closed the gates, because he sent everyone home, now it is silent. It is deserted. So if I think about those things that are happening in the text, I want to use that to help me to determine what exactly that means. A, it was full of people. Well, we just said here that it became silent and he sent everyone home. So it can't be full of people if he has sent everyone back home. B, it smelled like sand. So, yes, we think of the word deserted as in a desert, but that's not necessarily what this is talking about, not an actual desert. It says C, that it made only desserts. So, yes, Mr. Wonka's factory does make desserts, but that doesn't go along with what's happening in this particular text. And then we have D, no one was there. So if we think about this text that we just annotated, that everyone was sent home, things became silent, that mostly goes with what's happening. Everyone has deserted, everyone has left. So deserted in this particular case means that no one was there. Your job is now to finish up your text. You're going to start off exactly where I left off on page 17. You're going to read pages 17 through 21 and then answer your questions. Hope you do a good job.